What's the most ridiculous rule in your place of work? I once needed a pen. Figured this was a reasonable ask. Went to the supply closet on my floor, which was locked. Asked the floor's admin. She told me to go to the main supply room in the basement. Went to the basement and explained my situation of needing a pen. They told me all requests for supplies must be approved by my department head. Problem is, being new, I'd never met my department head. She also worked in San Francisco. I worked in Milwaukee, so I needed to send an email both introducing myself and asking her if I had permission to get a pen from the supply closet. All recreational activity is forbidden on company time and resources, except fantasy football. 2 weeks after I left my previous job, a memo went round saying people aren't allowed to look out of the windows at work anymore. It's a big-ass glass building. No accusing other staff members of being witches. Yeah, it happened, so we had to make a rule. I run a hostel in Uganda, which is exactly the kind of rule a witch would create. I used to work for a large bank. We had an attendance policy that was so complicated it actually created an incentive for employees to take an entire day off rather than be tardy too often. My school has a rule where if you came in more than 2 hours or so later, they just counted you as absent for the day, but also punished you for being late. So anytime you have an appointment, or just oversleep by a little bit, you may as well just abandon the whole day. We had the same thing, only it started if you were 10 minutes late to your first class, you were classified as truant when you came in, and received the same punishment you would have if you straight up skipped school. We can't ask others if they want to come grab a coffee in the break room. Just develop a subtle nod that means the same thing. Slap on the bum and a wink. We have a lock on the first aid kits, so if you just need a band-aid for a cut, you have to get the key from the safety guy, which in turn makes it a reportable accident, with mountains of paperwork and investigations. We use an unbelievable amount of duct tape now. Fuck that. I'd be keeping a box of band-aids in a rarely used drawer or hidden away somewhere. A new highly encouraged suggestion at my job is no drawers in your work area. All the extra toilet paper in the building has to stay in a single closet where it can be overseen by the toilet paper queen. I heard her shrieking the other day when she discovered someone had hoarded one spare roll of toilet paper upstairs so the people who work upstairs wouldn't have to walk down multiple flights of stairs when the toilet paper ran out. It's the cheapest, one-ply toilet paper available on the giant rolls that only fit in the special dispensers. I can't imagine anyone wanting to steal it. We had Spoon and Milk Queen who governed all the spoons and milk for my office. She would go round desks and hound people for spoons. People brought their own spoons and so they wouldn't have to deal with her. But she didn't understand that people could bring stuff in from home and was adamant that they must belong to the company, and got angry if you opposed her spoon reclamation mission. She also redesigned our kitchen. In her grand redesign, she left out a cutlery drawer. But we have a triple height pots pans drawer, so that's something. Although no cooker or pots pans, so it's completely empty. Thankfully, she was let go. A rule that said, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean, which fairly obviously meant if there was no work then you should be cleaning things. It was at an aircraft servicing station that was fairly small, but we needed a crew of at least 3 people for larger planes. The problem was that sometimes there were just no planes, so there was no work. We would clean for a couple hours and then just run out of stuff to clean. But according to management, that was no good. We had to be busy. It got to be that we would fight over work when it came in because everyone was so bored, and finding pretend busy work was much harder than just working. I remember getting the crew together to pick up pebbles off the taxiway for a couple hours. There's an old joke in aviation, go sweep the taxiway, so we actually did it. Why is there a mechanic vacuuming the lawn? Because his boss is an idiot. I used to work for Amazon in Ireland and their toilet breaks were crazy. Maximum of 10 minutes a day, but also a max of 20 minutes per week. You had to change the status on your computer so everything was recorded, and some managers would call you out on it, and even go as far as threaten your job. I had an understanding with my manager, and told him if I need to take a shit then I'm going for it. Like any good manager, he just told me that as long as I give him the numbers he wants, then I could do what I want. When I was in the military, I saw a buddy of mine sitting outside crying. I went and consoled him best as I could. Apparently, he was just depressed and unhappy. After he was feeling a bit better, I went to go and find someone to tell them what was happening. They knew. In fact, he had been crying so much lately that they had instituted a no crying at your desk policy, which is why he was outside. Empty inbox. My boss was an inbox Nazi. Like if you had old emails in there, he would flip and make you respond to them or delete them. Apparently you shouldn't have anything left at the end of the day. Deal with them or delete them. Joke's on him though. I just made a subfolder marked personal, and everything went in there. I used to work for the now long defunct books, movies, and music store MediaPlay. Just one of the 285 reasons that poorly run business ran into the ground was the tardy attendance policy. If you were literally 0.1 seconds late clocking in, even hours before the store opened, it was a really big deal. You'd not only be formally written up, but lectured like a child, oftentimes berated even. If you were tardy 3 times, bye-bye. However, if you no-showed and then called 2 hours later saying you were sick, okay, thank you, feel better. This trained everyone to just take a sick day instead of being half a second late to work. I can't tell you how many times you'd see a coworker screeching into the parking lot before work after fighting traffic from a wreck or whatever, noticing it was 8:01, and then slowly driving off to go home and feign being sick. This was particularly upsetting when it was a pull-down stock week when we needed every hand on deck but had unusually early shifts. There was an issue where there was too much socializing going on the factory floor, particularly when people were working while sitting down. False skewed supervisor perception, so they made everybody stand. When that presented ergonomics problems, they brought in these weird chairs that made you sit at a slant, had no backs, and no wheels, so they wouldn't cause distractions. My workplace doesn't let you use the word problems. Instead, we have to say challenges if something is wrong, as a problem is a negative word, and challenges promotes the fact that there is room to fix said problem. I don't know if it's standard, but I worked at a place where HR wasn't allowed to tell us if someone was fired. It was a big enough place that you might not immediately realize someone had left, and when you found out, you weren't supposed to ask why. So, if you wanted to know if they were fired, you asked, "Was there cake?" Which was to say that if the person had retired or left pleasantly after a number of years, they would be given a party with cake. If they were fired, not so much. "I haven't seen Brian for some time. Brian no longer works here. Was there cake?" Firemen. Our risk management department decided long ago that poles were too risky for us, so we used the stairs. We have poles. Anyway, now the newest rule is no free weights, as in no free weights to work out, stay fit. Go into burning high rise, absolutely. Walk around the station carrying 40 pounds dumbbells. Too risky. I used to work at a place in which my boss implemented a no more than 2 glasses a day water policy. I ignored this rule and complained directly to our CEO, and the matter ended later that day. What was weird though was the majority of people actually followed the rule, and some even shopped me up to HR about breaking the rules. Old job of mine in a warehouse. Our stations were pretty far apart, so when we'd listen to music we'd all usually have our own stuff playing. Not a problem since you could barely hear the neighbor's music. Well, the CEO didn't like hearing multiple songs when walking through the warehouse. He made a rule that we all either had to listen to the same music, or none at all. I'd put on the same song, but everyone started 15 seconds apart. Can't have my hands in my pockets. A long time ago, I went home on leave on one of those help the recruiter get free days off deals. Which was fun. I was 19, looking fly as fuck in my Cracker Jacks, hitting on all the high school hotties. One day there was a job fair at a local community college, so I helped GM1 set up the table, spread out the materials, and just talk to people that come up. After an hour or so, someone from the local paper shows up and chats with me for a bit. Next day, I show up. GM1 calls me in and flops down the paper. There, on the front page, was an article about the job fair, and me, leaning up against the table, hands in my pockets. Many years ago I was a vacuum cleaner salesman. There were songs about this particular brand of vacuum cleaner and how awesome it was. Every morning, we had to sing these songs as a group. In fairness, it was a pretty quality item. What is the most ridiculous rule in your workplace? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.